India, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, India's lunar lander module Vikram inches closer to the moon. It's expected to commence its descent to the lunar surface on 23rd August. Niger school leader proposes a 3-year transition to civilian rule, and he warns that any attack on the country would not be a walk in the park. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the country's economy shines as a beacon of hope in these challenging times. He says with robust growth and a resilient spirit, the future looks promising. And Spain and England, two European heavyweights, face off in the Women's World Cup final on Sunday. And the second and final de-boosting operation of India's moon mission, Chandrayaan-3, was successfully completed on Sunday morning. Scientists at India's space agency ISRO closely monitored this critical phase ahead of the spacecraft's landing on the lunar surface. The space agency says the lander Vikram will try a soft landing on the unexplored south polar region of the moon on Wednesday. A successful moon landing will be historic for India, making it the 4th country to have achieved this feat. Chandrayaan-3 was launched into space from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in the southern Indian city of Sriharikota on July 14th. Meanwhile, Russia's national space agency Roscosmos says an abnormal situation has occurred with its Luna 25 spacecraft. This happened on Saturday as it was preparing to transfer to its pre-landing orbit. The Russian spacecraft is scheduled to land on the south pole of the moon on Monday, but the Russian space agency says it's run into unspecified issues and that specialists are assessing the situation. Russia is in a race with India to explore a part of the moon that scientists think may hold frozen water and precious elements. The Luna 25 entered the moon's orbit on Wednesday, the first Russian spacecraft to do so since 1976. All right, we'll go across to Chennai now, where DD India's Jai Singh is joining us live. Good morning, Jai Singh. First of all, the second and final de-boosting operation of Chandrayaan-3 successfully completed this morning. So all set for the landing on 23rd?
Well, Abhishek, it is, as you said, the journey so far has been a picture-perfect journey. All its intended goals have been achieved so far. What is left is for the propulsion module is already, revolving around the moon, and the lander is now embarking on its own course around the moon, much closer and closer, and now the de-boost operation is complete. Now what is left is for the lander to, scan the surface of the moon, and on the opportune time on 23rd, on Wednesday, it will, have a powered descent, a slow movement, which is almost 2.4 meters per second velocity after tilting its orientation on a vertical, direction, so that the landing will be a perfect one. So now the scientists are making the lander module to, just see the surface of the moon, which has already been mapped, and finer details will be gathered by the lander. And when the time comes, that is when the sun rises on the south pole of the moon on Wednesday evening by around 5 hours 47 minutes, the powered descent phase, the slow moving phase, will begin, and we can have a very encouraging result. That's what ISRO scientists say.
Right, Jessing. Also, if everything goes well and according to the plan and it lands on the moon Chandrayaan-3 will enable the identification of various lunar resources, particularly helium-3, which holds promises as a future energy source, which is in fact the biggest significance too.
As you said, helium-3 is a very rare isotope of helium atom. It is not present in plenty on the Earth. So if helium-3 is useful for nuclear fusion, now we are getting atomic energy by splitting the atoms.
Okay.
When helium-3 is available in plenty, there is a possibility of fusing together two helium atoms to get a lot of plenty of electricity. This process is what is helping the sun to give this much of abundant energy through the whole of solar system. So nuclear fusion will revolutionize human life by giving cheap energy. If we get plenty of helium-3 that is considered to be supposed to be available on the surface of the moon in plenty, then we can possibly have a exploration sites from where we can explore not only helium-3 but also other electronic semiconductor electronic materials that can be explored and brought back to the Earth. So this is just a demonstration flight to begin with, and once we master the technology and the know-how and the experience, then there is every possibility of setting up a lunar station from where humans and other robots can do exploration activity as well. Furthermore, there are considered to be plenty of ice which are available on the craters which have never seen the sunlight. Therefore, the possibility of evaporation of water is not at all there. So water will be intact, which can be used for producing hydrogen and oxygen for human living, and also for farming, setting up a launch pad there from where we can move to other planets for exploration and human and scientific studies as well.
Jasing, also before we wind up, update on Russian Luna 25 also. I mean, it has suffered emergency situation above moon. I mean, is the landing in question at the scheduled time?
Well, the Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, has not shed much light on it. It simply says there is some emergency, and reports also suggest that micrometeorite, it has had an event with micrometeorite. Meteorites are very common on the surface of the moon because there is no atmosphere. Earth has an atmosphere, there is air. Whenever small meteorites come, it will develop friction and heat. That heat makes the meteorite to simply become ashes. And therefore, there is no danger for we people on the Earth. Whereas on the surface of the moon, there is no atmosphere, there is no air. So these meteorites have a free fall. And whenever such meteorites, big or small, have an encounter with spacecrafts, then it is a problem.
Right.
But much details hasn't come out of Roscosmos. As of now, it appears to be an emergency situation. We really do not know about the fate of the lander of Luna 25.
All right, Jasing, we'll end it here. Thank you for giving us your vital inputs. Niger school leader has proposed a 3-year transition to civilian rule after meeting a delegation of West African leaders. Abdurrahman Chiani warned that any attack on the country would not be a walk in the park for those involved. Speaking on national television on Saturday, he gave few details on the planned transition of power, only saying the principles for the move would be decided within 30 days at a meeting to be hosted by the ruling military council.
In this context, the leaving forces who will be invited to attend will set about formulating within 30 days concert's proposals designed to 1. Define the fundamental principles that should govern our transition. 2. Define the priority of the transition, which should last no longer than 3 years. 3. define national priorities during the transition, and 4. to call for fundamental values to guide the rebuilding of the republic.
And the junta leader also said that nobody in the country wants to see the conflict.
Nigerians, my dear compatriots, I hereby reaffirm that our ambition is not to seize power. I also reaffirm our readiness to engage in any dialogue, as long as it takes into account the orientation desired by the proud and resilient people of Niger. Any coercive and ignorant approach to the quest for sovereignty, security and good governance, clearly expressed by the population, amount to ignoring the deep-rooted dynamics at work in Sahelian's country, abandoned to their own fate for over 10 years by the very people who, instead of helping them fight the evil that beats them, now want to attack them today.
Meanwhile, West Africa's main bloc has agreed on a D-Day for possible military intervention to restore democracy in Niger after generals toppled and detained President Mohamed Bazoum last month. The Economic Community of West African States, which is ECOWAS, says its members have agreed to activate a standby force as a last resort if diplomatic efforts fail. DD India correspondent Isaac Lucando from Dar es Salaam has more.
West African defense chiefs say they've ironed out details of a potential military operation to restore constitutional rule in Niger. The military junta there has so far defied calls from the United Nations, ECOWAS and others to reinstate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum to power. Leaders of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, say they anticipate that a final diplomatic push could yield results. If it fails, a planned military intervention in Niger now has the backing of at least 11 of ECOWAS's 15 member states ready to contribute to a joint force. However, the bloc is likely to face legal and political hurdles in its endeavor, including the need for approval from legislative bodies of participating states. With 6 coups in the last 3 years, ECOWAS has had little success in stemming the region's many coups. ECOWAS and the international community saw the government overthrow in Niger as one too many. The bloc hopes that the threat of a military invasion, severe economic and travel sanctions will help restore order to an already volatile region. Isaac Lucando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
South Africa is set to host the 15th edition of the BRICS Summit in Johannesburg on Tuesday. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be attending the summit meeting.
BRICS represents the group of major emerging world economies, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. The theme of this year's summit is BRICS and Africa Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development and Inclusive Multilateralism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be representing India at the BRICS Leaders Summit. This visit of Prime Minister Modi to Johannesburg will be watched closely in diplomatic circles for 2 reasons. One, his interventions at the Leaders Summit here in Johannesburg, especially on how he proposes a greater role for developing countries in the global economic and political order, given that is one of the key priorities of India of its G20 presidency, even as it prepares to hold the Leaders Summit next month in Delhi. The second would be the much talked about meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi, if that happens, because the 2 sides have not been able to resolve the flashpoints in eastern Ladakh, even at the 19th military commanders meeting. Prime Minister Modi will also engage with fellow world leaders from BRICS and invited countries. BRICS 2023 will take forward deliberations on key priority areas that include developing partnerships towards climate change initiatives, transforming education and skills development for future, unlocking opportunities through African Continental Free Trade Area, strengthening post-pandemic recovery and 2030 agenda on sustainable development goals, promoting multilateralism with meaningful participation of women in peace processes.
BRICS represents a partnership of leading emerging economies that are providing leadership and momentum to global growth and sustainable development, a vision for a multilateral world which is equal, just, and creates space for the priorities of the global south.
The BRICS group accounts for more than 40% of the world population and about 26% of the global economy. Amritpal Singh and Shubhendu Ghosh reporting for DD India from Johannesburg.
All right, we'll go across to Johannesburg now in South Africa, where my colleague Shubhendu Ghosh is joining us. Very good morning, Shubhendu. I know it's early morning there. First of all, tell us the main agenda of this year's BRICS and also the role of India in the upcoming summit. Why this summit is important for India.
Right, Abhishek, good morning. And yes, it is early, about 3.5 hours behind New Delhi. Talking about the agenda of the BRICS, we have to see that BRICS, the central identity, is a congregation of leading emerging economies of the world, leading developing economies of the world, the 5 nations that BRICS represents. And therefore, at the heart of it, the BRICS concerns itself with the priorities of the developing world, of the global south, as we now understand the entire region as. The 5 countries are going to deliberate the key priorities, key challenges that faces this grouping, and also represent the concerns of the developing world. Specifics of the priorities, let us see what are the most crucial impact of climate change has been experienced in. So developing countries, poorer countries are the countries that have faced the worst brunt of climate change, and therefore the transition into cleaner energy ecosystem is something that the BRICS countries and the invitee countries will be deliberating on. What is the way in which effective, sustainable financing could be ensured for developing countries, for poorer countries who are coming into the global economic order? And reform of multilateralism in that perspective becomes extremely important. How can global institutions, global financial institutions to be specific, can focus on the unique requirements of developing countries? There is, of course, the unique bank of the BRICS, the new development bank that looks into the priorities, but it requires a more large-scale reform in multilateral institutions that BRICS nations in this summit as well are going to push for. Because it's happening in South Africa, there is also a greater focus on the region of the Africa. How can more cohesive trade technology links can be established between BRICS nations and not just South Africa, but the African continent as a whole? It is seen as the next potential growth center for the world in the coming decades. And that would also be in the focus. There is of course, development interventions where India has played a remarkable role in the past. Development interventions, particularly in the context of human training and human skill development programs, where India has, through its various programs, made a significant difference. And BRICS is going to take it forward in a more expanded format. That would be a key highlight. For India, it would be it's referred to as the leader of the global south already. It would, with more emphasis, put forth the concerns of the developing world. And remember, in this grouping, when the leaders of the 5 countries sit, of course, the Russian president would join in virtually. They would also be present the leaders of global organizations such as World Bank, United Nations. They'll be keenly observing what are the issues that the BRICS nations focus on. And in that sense, when the BRICS focuses on the needs of the global south, the world watches and listens.
Right, Shubhendu. Also, if you can share the schedule of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his engagements apart from the summit, any bilaterals planned, like you mentioned in the report also, that PM Modi likely to meet Xi Jinping. And is he meeting the Indian diaspora also?
Right, Abhishek, the particular details of a Prime Minister's engagement have not been shared yet, but broadly, 22nd of August, South Africa time is when he is likely to arrive to participate in the BRICS meet. Again, the specifics of bilateral are not known as of now. It will be made clear in the coming days. The meeting, if it happens with the Chinese leader, would be of great significance, as we also mentioned it in the story, given that there is such important cooperation that India and China are engaging in as far as the BRICS platform is concerned. And yet there are differences in the bilateral context, especially as far as border issues are concerned, and those are outstanding and are still waiting to be resolved. So in that sense, if a bilateral happens, it would be a great point of interest. There is a great excitement amongst the Indian community here. There's going to be a special welcome for Prime Minister, as is the case always as he arrives in Johannesburg, South Africa. But again, specifics of the program engagements are yet to be made public.
Right, Shubhendu, we'll end it here. Thank you for giving us your vital inputs. All right, we'll take a very short break, but still to come on DD India News are Russian missiles strike a central square in the historic northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv. 7 killed, more than 140 wounded. Thousands protest in Israel over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's judicial overhaul. And Guatemalans gear up for a presidential runoff vote dominated by calls to end corruption in the country.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Welcome to Jaipur.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Taiwan's defense minister says that in the past 24 hours, 25 Chinese Air Force planes crossed the Taiwan Straits median line. China launched military drills around Taiwan on Saturday as a serious warning to separatist forces in an angry but widely expected response to Vice President William Lai's visit to the United States. Lai, the front-runner to become Taiwan's president during the next election in January next year, returned from the United States on Friday. In a brief statement, the Chinese army said it was carrying out joint naval and air combat readiness patrols around the island. All right, for more on this, we are joined by DD India's Andrew Wood from Hong Kong. Andrew, China held military drills in Taiwan. Is this an angry response to Vice President William Lai's recent trip to the United States?
Well, I think William Lai made a bit of a mistake. Usually, China doesn't like it when a senior politician, or any politician really from Taiwan, passes through the United States, as he did on his way to a presidential inauguration in Paraguay. Because that looks like he's being treated as a proper politician as far as Beijing's concerned, as that he's a representative of what looks like a sovereign nation. And of course, Beijing says Taiwan is not a sovereign nation, it's part of China and should be reunited by force if necessary. Now, Mr. Lai actually did say he noticed that when he first came back, there'd been no reaction from China. There'd been no military exercises. And then a day or so later, China has responded, as you say, 25 planes crossing the median line into Taiwan, what Taiwan considers its own air defense area. More than 40 planes in general. And Taiwan has called this irrational and provocative. But it really is becoming quite a frequent event, quite an expected event these days, that Beijing decides to have these exercises off the coast of Taiwan to intimidate, to remind Taiwan and the rest of the world that Beijing is perhaps serious about one day taking this island by force.
Also, response of Taiwan is that it would dispatch appropriate forces to respond with practical actions. I mean, what do we make of this?
Well, the Taiwan military is much, much smaller than the Chinese military, the People's Liberation Army, which also runs the Air Force and the Navy. Now, America has been quite generous in providing military help, including things like missiles and warplanes, to Taiwan. But it has to be said that I think that if there were a sudden attack, Taiwan could probably put up a very good defense. Look at the way how Ukraine has put up a defense with, when it was first invaded, despite not having that much in the way of military equipment until more came in from the West. But it could be overwhelmed relatively quickly. That's the worry. To be fair, though, at this stage, it doesn't look like that China could mount an amphibious invasion of Taiwan. The closest, I think, the narrowest of the strait is at least 120 kilometers. It would be the world's biggest and most ambitious ever amphibious operation. Far, far bigger it would have to be than the D-Day landings in France in the Second World War in 1944. So I think that the worry here is that perhaps something goes wrong. Somebody shoots at somebody else and a shooting war starts. At the moment, China would probably have the advantage. America has said that by law has to help Taiwan defend itself. But it's unlikely at the moment that you'd get tens of thousands of troops pour into Taiwan, American troops to Taiwan, in order to defend it.
Any reaction of the US on this, China holding military drills in Taiwan? Because on Saturday, the US urged China to stop pressurizing Taiwan and engage in meaningful dialogue with the island.
Well, of course, the United States, President Biden has just had his summit with the leaders of Japan and the leaders of South Korea. Both Japan and South Korea are longtime allies of the United States, and they both worry about North Korea, and they both worry about China. And they're also both worried, too, that China might invade Taiwan. So those three countries have moved closer together. And it's also worth asking, too, is, the closer work on defense by those three countries, they see it as a deterrence against China. China may well be seeing it as a provocation, an attempt to try to encircle China and contain it. and that these exercises may well be a reminder too, as well, to America, Japan and South Korea as well, that China has potentially quite a lethal force if necessary.
All right, Andrew, we'll leave it here. Thank you for getting us the latest on the China-Taiwan issue. 7 people, including a 6-year-old girl, have been killed, more than 140 wounded, and 41 people are in hospital after Russian missiles struck a central square in the historic northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv on Saturday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the strike on Chernihiv coincided with the Orthodox holiday or the feast of the Transfiguration of the Lord. Debris was scattered across the square in front of a damaged theatre and surrounding buildings. Russia has regularly attacked Ukrainian cities far from the front line with missiles and drones as part of the full-scale invasion that began in February 2022.
Many leaders, representatives of states and international organizations have condemned another extremely vile Russian attack on Ukraine on our Chernihiv. I am grateful to each and every person in the world who has expressed their condolences to Ukraine and our people. Regrettably, 7 people were killed in the Chernihiv by a Russian missile, including a little girl. Her name was Sofia. My condolences to the families. The rocket hit right on the city center, and this during the feast of Transfiguration of the Lord, an Orthodox holiday.
Training has begun for Ukrainians to operate US F-16 fighter jets. This could take at least 6 months or possibly longer. Ukraine's defense minister said that 6 months of training was considered the minimum for pilots, but it was not yet known how long it would take to train engineers and mechanics. Ukraine wants the sophisticated US-made warplanes so it can counter the air superiority of Russia. A US official said that Washington had approved sending F-16s to Ukraine from Denmark and the Netherlands as soon as pilot training was completed. Kiev has not provided details on where and when the training will take place. All right, we'll slip into another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Ecuador votes in a presidential election on Sunday. US President Joe Biden attends a church service while on vacation in Nevada. And BJP leaders JP Nadda, Anurag Singh Thakur reach Himachal Pradesh to take stock of the situation and assess damage due to floods and landslides.
Shagato to West Bengal, India's cultural epicenter. West Bengal invites you to share its richness, to be united as one family with one shared vision of building a better tomorrow.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Now, viewers who have just tuned in, recap of what we have done so far. India's lunar lander module Vikram inches closer to the moon. It's expected to commence its descent to the lunar surface on 23rd August. Niger school leader proposes a 3-year transition to civilian rule, and he warns that any attack on the country would not be a walk in the park. And Spain and England, 2 European heavyweights, face off in the Women's World Cup final on Sunday. In Israel, tens of thousands of Israelis returned to the streets of Tel Aviv, protesting against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned judicial overhaul. They have been on the picket line for 33 weeks in a row. Protesters carried banners which read in Hebrew, "You sit in the back," a reference to fears of religious gender segregation. It follows an incident last week in which a teenage girl was told to sit at the back of the bus for being immodestly dressed. Israel's Supreme Court began hearing on Thursday, the first in a series of appeals linked to a judicial overhaul undertaken by Benjamin Netanyahu and his hard-right coalition. This week, women's rights are in the spotlight. Questions about gender segregation and discrimination have been raised amongst the public and politicians. The Central American country of Guatemala is preparing for Sunday's presidential runoff election amid fears of election meddling. Voters say they are hoping for calm. The frontrunner Bernardo Arevalo, a reformist candidate, has promised to revive a stalled anti-corruption movement and reverse democratic backsliding if he wins. Arevalo holds a double-digit lead in the polls over his opponent, former First Lady Sandra Torres. There were calls for a recount when he finished in second place in June's first round. A prosecutor then persuaded a court to suspend Arevalo's party, threatening to sideline his bid. Guatemala's top court later reversed the ban. Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei says he will work to ensure an orderly transition of power to whoever voters elect. Now, forest fires in Canada, western province of British Columbia have intensified. It's now doubled the number of people under an evacuation order to 35,000 from a day earlier. The authorities warned of some difficult days ahead. The province declared a state of emergency on Friday. This will allow it to access temporary authoritative powers to tackle fire-related risks. Fires ripped through some sections of a key transit route between the Pacific coast and the rest of Western Canada. Officials say the province is in dire need of shelter for evacuees, and firefighters have ordered a ban on non-essential travel. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau convened a meeting of key ministers and senior officials on Saturday to discuss the dire situation his country is facing. Meanwhile, the northern Canadian city of Yellowknife evacuated most of its roughly 20,000 residents due to a large approaching blaze. People left their homes and properties behind to seek refuge in neighboring provinces. The residents and tourists left the area, many by car, as the fire and smoke continued to move across the region. There are threats that strong winds could fuel further fires in the area. And there are air quality concerns in Spain as wildfires continue there. The authorities say more than 26,000 people have been evacuated and up to 11 towns affected. Firefighters continue to battle the infernos which are threatening residential areas. Europe is battling the effects of scorching hot weather. July was recorded as the hottest month on record. Now, France is battling an unusually late summer heat wave that saw temperatures climb up to 40 degrees Celsius in parts of the country. The experts say the growing frequency and intensity of severe weather is due to climate change. Meanwhile, in the US, wildfires on the island of Maui in Hawaii have been brought under control after days of widespread devastation. Search and rescue teams have been working tirelessly to search for victims in the aftermath of wildfires that scorched Maui. At least 111 people have been confirmed dead. US President Joe Biden this week authorized additional federal support for Hawaii. Parts of Mexico face a severe hurricane as it barrels north. US officials also warn of life-threatening flooding likely to lash the California peninsula and US Southwest. Dangerous rains remain a major concern, with up to 10 inches of rainfall expected in some regions of Baja California and California. Now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Brazilian protesters placed 14 coffins on a beach to represent the bodies of children killed in police raids in Rio de Janeiro on Saturday. Joint police operations against drug gangs in various cities of Brazil has left more than 40 people dead in the first week of August. Pakistani opposition party leader Shah Mahmood Qureshi has been detained by authorities. Details about the arrest are still unclear. PTI party chairman Imran Khan is currently jailed for 3 years after being convicted on graft charges and is barred from contesting any elections for 5 years. Days after the assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio in Ecuador, another shootout broke out on Saturday near a restaurant where another presidential candidate, Otto Sonnenholzner, was dining. According to the police, this time the violence was not related to him. Hackers from North Korea are suspected to have targeted a joint US-South Korea military drill that will be held this week. South Korean police say no classified information was compromised. South Korean and US forces will begin their 11-day Ulchi Freedom Guardian summer exercises on Monday. The joint drill is aimed to improve their ability to respond to North Korea's evolving nuclear and missile threats. As Ecuador prepares to go on the polls to elect the next president, the government has strengthened the security arrangements near polling stations. Ecuador's Interior Minister Juan Zapata also announced that over 1,000 officers, including police, military and technical staff, will provide security for the elections. A 4-day alcohol ban is also in place. The Electoral Council President also said the authorities have worked to guarantee the safety of voters and safeguard the right of all to vote. US President Joe Biden was seen arriving at a church service on Saturday in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, where he and his family are vacationing. Biden, his wife Jill, his son Hunter, and other family members are staying at a home rented from billionaire climate activist Tom Steyer. The White House said the Bidens are renting the home at fair market value. Biden is to travel to Hawaii on Monday to get a first-hand look at the destruction wrought by wildfires that killed dozens of people in Maui. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared a business news portal report on India's economy. Prime Minister Modi has praised the Indian economy, saying it shines as a beacon of hope in these challenging times. He also called upon everyone to keep up this momentum and ensure prosperity for millions of Indians. The report further stated that India has seized the population demographic crown from China. The report also quoted International Monetary Fund figures that India is the 5th largest economy after the US, China, Japan and Germany, and it will overtake both Japan and Germany to claim 3rd spot by 2027. And Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, addressed media after G20 health ministers meeting in the western Indian city of Gandhinagar in Gujarat. The WHO DG said even though the COVID emergency has ended, but we should not let our guards down.
COVID emergency has ended, but still COVID is around. But not only that, we have to prepare for the next one. And one of the challenges during COVID was lack of equitable access to vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And what the G20 countries have agreed under India's presidency is to address the access to counter measures, medical counter measures.
GMR Vara Lakshmi Care Hospital believes in the motto of universal health care. It caters not only to the town of Rajam in Andhra Pradesh, the southern state in India, but also to the 300 surrounding villages spanning the districts of Srikakulam, Vizianagaram and even reaching into the southern reaches of Odisha. Here's more in this report.
Nestled in the heart of Rajam, a quaint town in Andhra Pradesh, a remarkable voyage in healthcare commenced. Welcome to GMR Varalakshmi Care Hospital, a beacon of quality medical care and compassion. Established in 2011 as a 65-bed facility, Varalakshmi Care Hospital has blossomed into a 200-bed powerhouse of healing. This 200-bed hospital spread over 25 acres of land has proved to be a boon for the people residing in Srikakulam and Vizianagaram district. The neuro division, which has opened up in around February this year, has given a ray of hope for the people of more than 300 villages nearby areas.
Most of the people, they are dependent on agriculture. The affordability is a question here. So what we did is we had put our tariffs almost 1/3 of what it costs in a corporate hospital in Visakhapatnam or any other city, nearby city, so that it is affordable to the patients.
India is moving towards achieving the goal of universal healthcare under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, with schemes like Ayushman Bharat playing a pivotal role. Going beyond healing, the hospital embraces sustainable practices with a sewage treatment plant, water treatment facility and a solar energy utilization. It's a hospital that cares for both people and the planet. Number speaks volumes. Over 900,000 outpatients, 68,000 inpatient and 38,000 surgeries conducted, all at a fraction of the cost of a city hospital.
The hospital is able to provide all the basic care, advanced care, as well as health care for the critical illnesses.
At the heart of this hospital lies its patient concession cards, a symbol of empathy and inclusivity. These cards offer free consultation for families below the poverty line, ensuring that healthcare remains accessible to all. Over 75,000 cards have been distributed, covering the medical needs of around 350,000 people and counting.
No patient should be sent out for lack of money. No patient should be refused care for lack of money. So even 100% discounts were also given in some select cases.
इक्विपमेंट अच्छा है यहाँ पे, नर्सेस सर्विस अच्छा है और जो भी हम लोग मांगते हैं तो वो अर्जेंटली मिल जाता है सर और हर चीज़ में अच्छा है यहाँ पे.
As the journey continues, the hospital reaffirms its commitment to extend quality healthcare and touching lives, embodying the spirit of care and community. Tapush Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
All right, we'll slip into another short break. On the other side, more stories. Keep watching DD India News Hour.
Tamil Nadu is breathtaking, enchanting, divine, come, revel in the spirit of Tamil Nadu. The Thalaiva of States welcomes to an experience larger than life.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Let's get you sporting updates now. All right, we'll start with football. Get ready for an epic showdown in the FIFA Women's World Cup final on Sunday. La Roja and the Lionesses, two powerhouse European teams, prepare to clash in Sydney. Spain have notched up an eye-watering 17 goals in the tournament. The Lionesses have not lost a game in the tournament and have picked up some impressive results.
Spain will take on England in the FIFA Women's World Cup final on Sunday. Spain and England contending for the first title. Both the teams have been impressive in the tournament, but Spain are obviously the surprise package, with their previous best record being a round of 16 finish. Reaching the final was historic. La Roja have built much confidence since the start and will likely to stick to their brand of football when they face England. Their ability to build from back and sophisticated passing pattern could break England's long ball style. England could become just the second team after Germany in 2003 and 2007 to win the Women's World Cup as reigning European champions. England have been in red-hot form, posting a flawless run of 6 wins in the competition.
I think, obviously, this is the biggest game, the one that you dream about, the one that means the most, but I feel like it will hit when we're in the tunnel and we're ready to walk out. And yeah, I think it's an incredible occasion. It's been an unbelievable tournament, and this is it. This is exactly where we want to be, and we can't wait.
Including friendlies, these two teams have faced off 11 times since 2007. The overall record is in England's favour, so they have upper hand by that metric. The Lionesses also won most recent meeting between the two sides, a close affair in a Euro 2022 quarter-final, which went to extra time. Sports Desk, DD India.
Cricket now. India will be up against Ireland in the second T20 International at Malahide in Dublin today. India won the first match of the series by Duckworth-Lewis method. Jasprit Bumrah's comeback was the main talking point in the rain-hit opening game, but now the focus quickly shifts to the batters from the two sides. For Ireland, it was the low order that helped them to a modest 139 in the first game. The top 6 scored just 64 runs between them. The average first innings score in T20Is in Malahide is 161. Teams batting first have lost 10 out of 17 T20Is here. It is expected to be sunny and pleasant throughout the day. Now, chess prodigy R. Pragyanand continued his impressive streak, securing a significant draw against world number 2, Fabiano Caruana. The draw was a psychological win for him. This happened in the first game of their semi-final match in the FIDE World Cup in Baku in Azerbaijan on Saturday. The players clash again on Sunday in the classical time control, with Pragyanand playing with white pieces. And the International Cricket Council has unveiled the mascots for the upcoming ODI World Cup, scheduled to be held in India from October 5th to November 19th. The tournament is set to capture the hearts of cricket enthusiasts worldwide. The ceremonial reveal of the mascots on Saturday was carried out by none other than Yash Dhul and Shefali Verma, the captains of reigning ICC Under-19 World Cup champions, at a grand event at Gurugram in India. The dynamic duo showcased the pair of mascots who originate from a distant cricket utopia called the Cricketoverse. The mascots, a male and a female character, embody the principles of gender equality and diversity that are integral to the world of cricket. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.